My name is Olivia Hamilton, and I'm 35 years old. Have you ever been erased from your own family story? Last week, at my father's retirement gala, the pinnacle of his 30-year career as a prestigious school principal, I was literally kicked out of the VIP table in front of 200 guests. Not for causing a scene, not for being late, but for being just an elementary school teacher who apparently embarrassed the family. While his new stepdaughter, a corporate lawyer, took my seat and my inheritance position on a $5 million education fund board, I stood there shaking, humiliated beyond words. But what happened next? When my quiet, unassuming husband stood up and walked to that microphone, the entire ballroom fell silent. What he revealed about who he really was changed everything in less than 60 seconds. The look on my father's face, the gasps from the crowd, and especially my stepmother's dropped champagne glass. I'll never forget it. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear if you've ever faced family rejection for not being successful enough. Now let me take you back to that night. The crystal ballroom at the Grandview Hotel sparkled with importance that evening. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over round tables dressed in ivory linens, each centerpiece featuring white orchids that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. This wasn't just any retirement party. This was Robert Hamilton's grand finale, and he'd made sure everyone who mattered in the education world would witness it. My husband Marcus and I arrived 15 minutes late, thanks to unexpected traffic on the highway. I smoothed down my navy dress, the nicest one I owned, bought 3 years ago for my teaching award ceremony. Marcus looked handsome in his simple black suit, though I noticed him checking his phone more frequently than usual. "Everything okay with work?" I asked as we entered the ballroom. "Just some last-minute details," he said, squeezing my hand. "Nothing to worry about." The room buzzed with at least 200 guests, school board members, principals from across the district, major donors, and even reporters from the local education journal. A photographer was already snapping shots near the stage where a massive banner read, "Celebrating Principal Robert Hamilton, 30 years of educational excellence." My father stood near the entrance in a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably cost 3 months of my teaching salary. Patricia, his wife of 4 years, glittered beside him in a gold sequined gown, her diamond necklace catching the light with every practiced laugh. They looked like they belonged on a magazine cover. "Olivia!" Dad's voice boomed when he spotted us, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "You made it." "Of course, Dad. Wouldn't miss your big night." Patricia's gaze swept over my dress with barely concealed disappointment. "How nice of you to come. Jessica's been here for an hour already, networking with the board members." Jessica, Patricia's daughter, the successful one. "The traffic was—" I started. "No excuses necessary," Patricia cut in smoothly. "Let's get you to your table." As we walked through the crowd, I noticed the local news crew setting up cameras near the stage. Whatever announcement my father planned tonight, he wanted it documented. Marcus's phone buzzed again, and he glanced at it briefly, his expression unreadable. Something about this night felt different. The way Patricia kept smiling, the way my father avoided direct eye contact, and especially the way Marcus kept his phone close, like he was waiting for something. I just didn't know yet that I was about to be erased from my own family's narrative. The place cards at the VIP table gleamed like tiny verdicts. I scanned them twice, then a third time, my stomach dropping with each pass. Robert Hamilton, Patricia Hamilton, Jessica Morrison, David Chen, board members, major donors, no Olivia Hamilton. "There must be some mistake with the seating," I said, trying to keep my voice light. Patricia appeared at my elbow, her smile sharp as crystal. "Oh, didn't Robert tell you? We had to make some last-minute adjustments. Space constraints, you understand." I looked at the table. 8 chairs, 7 cards. One empty seat right next to where Jessica was already sitting, her manicured hand resting on the back of the chair as she chatted animatedly with David Chen, the chairman of the Education Fund Board. But I'm his daughter, I said quietly. Of course you are, dear. You're at table 12 right over there. Patricia pointed to a table near the back, half hidden behind a decorative pillar. With the other teachers from the district. Won't that be nice? You'll have so much in common to discuss. Marcus's jaw tightened beside me. This is her father's retirement dinner. And we're so glad you both could come, Patricia responded smoothly, already turning away. Jessica, darling, tell Mr. Chen about your latest case win. Jessica looked up, her smile perfectly practiced. Oh, Olivia, didn't see you there. Don't you look comfortable? Her eyes swept my 3-year-old dress. Patricia was just telling everyone about my promotion to senior associate, youngest in the firm's history. The words stung exactly as intended. I stood frozen, watching my nameplate's absence like it was a prophecy. My father approached, straightening his tie. Dad, why am I not at your table? He shifted uncomfortably. Patricia thought it would be better for networking if Jessica. She has some connections that could benefit the fund. You understand, don't you? It's just business. Just business. My own father had made my exclusion a business decision. Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Where exactly is Olivia supposed to sit? Table 12 is perfectly fine, my father said, not meeting my eyes. Many distinguished educators there. Distinguished educators. Code for the people who didn't matter enough for the VIP table. Jessica's laugh rang out as she touched David Chen's arm, discussing something about corporate sponsorships. She was sitting in my chair, living my moment, and everyone seemed perfectly fine with it. Marcus's phone vibrated. He glanced at it, and something flickered in his expression. Was that satisfaction? Come on, I whispered, tugging his arm. Let's just go to table 12. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just been demoted in my own family hierarchy. Table 12 felt like exile. As we made our way through the ballroom, Patricia's voice carried over the classical music, each word precisely aimed for maximum impact. This is Jessica, my daughter, she announced to a circle of donors. Senior associate at Foster & Associates. She just won a multi-million-dollar case for the Peterson Foundation. A pause, then. Oh, and that's Robert's daughter, Olivia, heading to the back. She teaches elementary school at PS 48, the public one. The way she said public made it sound like a disease. Marcus's hand found mine under table 12's polyester tablecloth, a far cry from the VIP table's silk. Around us sat 5 other teachers, all looking slightly uncomfortable in their best clothes, clearly aware they were the bargain seats at this premium event. "Third grade, right?" asked Mrs. Chen, a middle school math teacher. "I heard you won Teacher of the Year last year." "I did," I said, managing a smile. "That's wonderful," she replied. But we both heard the unspoken truth. Wonderful didn't get you to the VIP table. From across the room, Jessica's voice rang out confidently as she discussed international tax law with someone from the mayor's office. Every few minutes, Patricia would gesture in her direction, making sure everyone knew that was her daughter, the successful one. My father worked the room, and I counted. He introduced Jessica to 12 people in 15 minutes. He walked past our table twice without stopping. Marcus squeezed my hand tighter. His phone lit up with a message, and I caught a glimpse. "Confirmation received. Ready when you are." "What's that about?" I asked. "Just work," he said. But there was something in his tone I couldn't place. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I lied. "No, you're not." His brown eyes met mine, steady and warm. "And you shouldn't have to be." From the VIP table, another burst of laughter. Patricia was now telling someone about Jessica's Harvard law degree, loud enough for our corner to hear. "We're just so proud of what she's accomplished. It takes real ambition to reach those heights." Real ambition. Unlike teaching 8-year-olds to read, apparently. Mrs. Chen leaned over sympathetically. "Family events can be complicated." I nodded, watching my father beam at Jessica as she showed him something on her phone, probably her latest bonus statement. Meanwhile, I had 28 students' handmade thank you cards in my desk drawer, but those didn't translate to networking opportunities. Marcus typed something quickly on his phone, then put it away. "Whatever you're planning," I whispered. "Don't. It's not worth it." He kissed my temple. "You're always worth it." The lights dimmed slightly as my father took the stage, tapping the microphone with practiced authority. 200 faces turned toward him, and the photographer positioned himself for the perfect shot. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," Dad began, his voice carrying that principal's authority I'd grown up admiring. "As I stand here, preparing to close this chapter of my career, I'm overwhelmed by gratitude." He launched into acknowledgments: the school board, fellow principals, major donors. Then came the personal section. My heart rate picked. "I'm blessed with a wonderful family," he said, gesturing to the VIP table. "My beautiful wife Patricia, who's been my rock these past 4 years. And I'm especially proud tonight to have Jessica Morrison here, Patricia's daughter, who I've come to think of as my own." As my own. The words hit like ice water. Jessica just made senior associate at Foster & Associates, the youngest in their history. Harvard Law, summa cum laude. She represents everything we hope education can achieve: ambition, excellence, and the drive to reach the very top of her field. The applause was enthusiastic. Jessica stood, waving graciously, her red designer dress catching every light. The photographer snapped multiple shots. I waited. Surely now he'd mention, "Family is everything," Dad continued, moving on to thank the catering staff. That was it. His other daughter, the one who'd followed in his footsteps into education, didn't merit a mention. 30 years in education, and he couldn't acknowledge the daughter who became a teacher. Mrs. Chen touched my arm gently. "That was expected," I finished, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. But inside, memories flooded back. Dad missing my college graduation because Patricia had planned a cruise. Forgetting my birthday 2 years running. The Christmas dinner where Jessica's promotion dominated every conversation while my Teacher of the Year award went unmentioned. "You know what?" Marcus said suddenly, his voice carrying an odd note. "I just remembered something." "What?" "The first time you told me about winning that teaching award, you were so excited you called your dad immediately." He paused. "He said he'd call you back. Did he ever?" The answer sat between us, heavy as stone. No, he never called back. On stage, Dad was now telling a funny story about his first day as principal. The crowd laughed warmly. He was charming, commanding, everything a leader should be. Everything a father should be, except to the daughter who disappointed him by choosing passion over prestige. Marcus's phone buzzed. He read the message, and for the first time tonight, he smiled. "What?" I asked. "Just remembering why I married a teacher," he said. "And why that matters more than anyone in this room realizes." If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or like your achievements don't matter because they're not flashy enough, please hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything, and I'd love to know. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who didn't value you? Share your story in the comments below. I'm reading every single one, and it helps to know we're not alone in these struggles. Now, let me tell you what happened when things got even worse. Because my father's next announcement changed everything I thought I knew about my place in the family. My father returned to the microphone, his expression shifting to what I recognized as his important announcement face. The same one he'd worn when telling me about marrying Patricia. "Now for the evening's major announcement," he said, commanding instant silence. "As you know, the Hamilton Education Fund has received a generous commitment of $5 million from TechEdu Corporation." Appreciative murmurs rippled through the crowd. 5 million was substantial, even for this well-heeled audience. "This fund will provide scholarships and resources for emerging educational leaders," Dad continued. And tonight, I'm thrilled to announce who will take my seat on the fund's board of directors when I retire. My breath caught. This was it. The position he'd promised me 3 years ago when the fund was first established. When I retire, Olivia, you'll carry on the family tradition, he'd said. Your classroom experience will be invaluable. After careful consideration, Dad said, his voice swelling with pride, I'm delighted to announce that Jessica Morrison will be joining the board as my successor. The room erupted in applause. Jessica stood, smoothing her red dress, waving like she'd just won an Oscar. Patricia beamed, dabbing at her eyes with theatrical precision. I sat frozen, unable to process what I'd just heard. 3 years of preparation, 2 years of research into teacher scholarship programs, countless proposals I'd drafted for innovative classroom funding. Gone. Jessica brings a unique perspective, Dad continued. Her legal expertise and corporate connections will help the fund grow beyond anything we've imagined. Legal expertise for an education fund to help teachers. Marcus's hand gripped mine so tightly it almost hurt. That position was yours. I know, I whispered. But it was worse than just losing the position. This fund would determine scholarship allocations for hundreds of teachers across the state. Teachers like me, who Jessica had probably never spoken to outside of tonight. She didn't know the difference between Common Core and state standards. She'd never spent a day in a classroom. Furthermore, Dad added, Jessica will be working closely with our primary sponsor, Tech Edu Corporation, to ensure their vision aligns with our goals. Their vision, not educators' vision, not teachers' needs, corporate vision. Mrs. Chen gasped softly beside me. But you're an actual teacher. You understand what we really need. I did, which was exactly why I wasn't chosen. Marcus stood abruptly. Excuse me for a moment. Where are you going? To make a call, he said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. This changes things. As he walked away, phone already at his ear, I watched Jessica accepting congratulations at the VIP table. My inheritance transformed into her stepping stone. The full weight of what I'd lost hit me as David Chen, the board chairman, stood to elaborate on the position's responsibilities. The board member will oversee allocation of nearly $500,000 annually in teacher scholarships, he explained. They'll determine funding priorities, select recipients, and shape the future of educational support in our state. $500,000 every year for teachers who desperately needed support. I thought about Mrs. Rodriguez at my school, taking weekend shifts at Target to buy classroom supplies. About James, the second-grade teacher who'd started a GoFundMe for special education resources. About my own $200 monthly spending on books and materials. This position could have changed all that. I've prepared a comprehensive proposal, Jessica was telling someone at her table, loud enough to carry, focusing on leadership development and administrative advancement programs. Administrative advancement, not classroom supplies, not teacher retention, not the things that actually mattered to the kids we taught every day. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Need you to trust me. Something important is about to happen. I looked around, but couldn't spot him in the crowd. Where had he gone? Patricia's voice cut through my thoughts as she addressed a group near our table, ensuring we could all hear. Jessica's already identified several partnership opportunities with corporate sponsors. Real innovation, not just the same old classroom charity drives. Classroom charity drives. Is that what she thought of our fundraising efforts? 2 years, I said quietly to Mrs. Chen. I've spent 2 years researching teacher burnout, creating retention strategies, designing mentorship programs. We know, she said gently. We all know what you've done for this community. But knowing didn't matter. Not here, not in this room where success was measured in billable hours and corporate connections. My father was back at the microphone. Jessica will bring fresh perspective to education funding. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see what insiders miss. An outsider. After 30 years in education, he truly believed an outsider would serve teachers better than an actual teacher. My phone lit up with another message from Marcus. Watch David Chen. This is important. I looked toward the VIP table. David Chen was reading something on his phone, his expression shifting from casual interest to sharp attention. He glanced around the room, searching for someone. Before we continue, David said, standing suddenly, I'd like to clarify something about our corporate sponsors. The room quieted. This wasn't part of the program. Patricia looked confused. Jessica's smile faltered slightly. And somewhere in the crowd, my husband was orchestrating something I didn't yet understand. I couldn't sit there anymore, not with 200 people witnessing my erasure. My legs moved before my brain caught up, carrying me toward the VIP table with a determination I didn't know I possessed. Dad, we need to talk. The conversation at the table stopped. 7 faces turned toward me, including Jessica's perfectly composed smirk. Not now, Olivia. His tone carried that principal's authority that used to make students freeze. Yes, now, this can't wait. You're making a scene! Patricia's voice was ice wrapped in silk. Am I? Because I thought we were celebrating education tonight. I kept my voice steady, professional, the same tone I used with difficult parents. That position was promised to me 3 years ago. Circumstances change, Dad said, not meeting my eyes. What circumstances? My teaching award? My master's degree? My decade of classroom experience? Jessica laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. Olivia, managing a multi-million-dollar fund requires more than good intentions. You're right. It requires understanding what teachers actually need. Which is why we need someone with real-world experience, Patricia interjected. Real-world experience? The words came out sharper than intended. I teach 28 eight-year-olds every day. I buy supplies with my own money. I work 60-hour weeks for $40,000 a year. How much more real does it get? People at nearby tables were turning to watch. Someone had their phone out recording. This is embarrassing, Dad hissed. You need to leave, now. Embarrassing? What's embarrassing is giving an education board seat to someone who's never set foot in a classroom. Security, Patricia called out, raising her hand. 2 security guards started moving toward us. The photographer was snapping pictures. This was it, the moment I became the crazy daughter who ruined her father's retirement. I'm going, I said, backing away. But everyone here should know that Robert Hamilton just chose networking over knowledge, connections over compassion. His legacy isn't education, it's opportunism. Get out. Dad's face was red, his composure finally cracking. You're no longer welcome here. The words hit harder than any slap. No longer welcome. At my own father's retirement. As security approached, a calm voice cut through the tension. That won't be necessary. Marcus appeared beside me, his presence steady as a lighthouse. He addressed the security guards with quiet authority. We're leaving voluntarily. But first, Mr. Hamilton, one question. Dad glared at him. What? Do you know who your primary sponsor actually is? The CEO of Tech Edu Corporation? Of course, some tech executive. What does that? Interesting. Very interesting. Marcus's smile was subtle but unmistakable. Shall we go, Olivia? Something in his tone made everyone pause. The security guards flanked us as we walked through the ballroom, 200 pairs of eyes tracking our humiliation. Someone whispered, Is that his actual daughter? Another person held up their phone, live streaming the spectacle. You're embarrassing yourself, Patricia called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is what happens when you can't accept your limitations. I stopped walking, turned back. The entire room held its breath. My limitations? Some people are meant for greatness, Jessica added, standing now, her voice carrying that courtroom confidence. Others are meant for simpler things. There's no shame in being ordinary, Olivia. Ordinary. The word hung in the air like a verdict. Teaching is noble work, Patricia continued with fake sympathy. But let's be honest, anyone can teach elementary school. It takes real talent to succeed in law or business. Anyone can teach. I thought of Tommy, my student with dyslexia who'd finally learned to love reading. Of Sarah, who'd overcome selective mutism in my classroom. Of the 17-hour days, the differentiated instruction, the child psychology courses, the endless patience required to shape young minds. You're right, I said quietly. Anyone can stand in front of a classroom. Not everyone can teach. There's a difference. Dad stood up at the VIP table, his face burgundy with rage. Security, escort them out now. Robert, David Chen interjected. Perhaps we should— Stay out of this, David. This is family business. Family business. Being publicly humiliated was family business. The guards moved closer, and one touched my elbow. Ma'am, we need you to leave. Don't touch my wife. Marcus's voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. The guard immediately stepped back. Or what? Dad challenged. You'll both leave? Please do. Jessica's announcement is the only one that matters tonight. Marcus pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. You're absolutely right, Robert. Jessica's announcement does matter. In fact, it matters to quite a few people. What's that supposed to mean? Patricia demanded. You'll find out. Marcus pocketed his phone. David, you might want to check your email. I just sent you something important. David Chen frowned, pulling out his phone. His eyes widened as he read. What did you— Dad started. Nothing that wasn't already in motion, Marcus said calmly. Olivia, let's go. We don't need to be here for what happens next. As we walked toward the exit, I heard David Chen's urgent voice. Robert, we need to talk. Now. The last thing I saw was my father's confused face as David Chen showed him something on his phone, and Patricia's perfectly composed expression beginning to crack. We were almost at the ballroom doors when Marcus stopped abruptly. Actually, I've changed my mind. He turned back toward the room, his stride purposeful. I'd never seen him like this. Usually my husband was the quiet one, content to support from the sidelines. But something had shifted. Marcus, what are you doing? Something I should have done the moment they changed your seat. He walked straight to the stage, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Excuse me, Mr. Hamilton, Marcus said into the microphone, his voice carrying that same calm authority I'd heard him use on conference calls. One quick question before we go. Dad looked ready to explode. Get off that stage. Just one question. You mentioned TechEdu Corporation is providing $5 million to your fund. That's quite impressive. Do you know much about TechEdu? What kind of question is that? Patricia shrieked. Security! But David Chen raised his hand, stopping security. Let him speak, Robert. This is relevant. Marcus continued, unruffled. TechEdu specializes in educational technology for underserved schools. They, believe every child deserves quality education regardless of zip code. He'd said we. Fascinating company history, actually, Marcus continued conversationally. Founded 5 years ago by someone who watched his mother struggle as a public school teacher. She spent her own money on supplies, worked weekends without pay, never got the recognition she deserved. Sound familiar? The room was dead silent now. Even the catering staff had stopped moving. The founder promised himself that when he had the means, he'd support teachers properly. Not with empty words or photo ops, but with real resources. Marcus looked directly at my father. That founder believed teachers like Olivia, the ones who stay late tutoring struggling students, who spend their summers designing innovative curricula, who see potential where others see problems, those teachers deserve more than a seat at the back of the room. What's your point? Dad demanded, though his voice had lost its edge. My point is that TechEdu's funding comes with specific conditions. Values alignment, they call it. The company is very particular about who manages their donations. David Chen was typing furiously on his phone now, his expression increasingly alarmed. Marcus, I whispered, pieces clicking into place. The conference calls he took in his home office. the educational journals on his nightstand, the way he always knew exactly what my classroom needed. The contract terms, Marcus said, his voice still conversational, are quite specific about the kind of leadership Tekadu expects. Strange that you didn't review them more carefully. My father's face had gone from red to pale. You're not. You can't be. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile, just matter of fact. Interesting assumptions, Mr. Hamilton. David Chen stepped forward, his phone in hand, voice urgent. Robert, we need to discuss this immediately. The contract specifications. What contract specifications? Patricia demanded, her composure finally cracking. Marcus pulled out his own phone, reading from the screen. Section 7.3. Fund management must prioritize classroom educator experience. Section 7.4. Board positions should reflect diverse educational backgrounds, with preference for active teachers. He looked up. Should I continue? Jessica laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. You can't seriously suggest— I'm not suggesting anything, Marcus interrupted smoothly. I'm simply reading from a binding legal document, one that Mr. Hamilton signed 6 weeks ago. My father grabbed the contract from David Chen, scanning it frantically. His face went even paler. Furthermore, Marcus continued, Tech Edu reserves the right to withdraw funding if these conditions aren't met. It's all there in black and white. You set us up, Patricia hissed. No, we offered $5 million with clear conditions. You just assumed you could ignore them. Marcus's voice remained perfectly professional. Interesting how you never bothered to ask who ran Tech Edu. You saw the money and assumed the details didn't matter. I noticed something then, the Tech Edu logo on the massive backdrop behind the stage. The same stylized apple with a graduation cap I'd seen on Marcus's laptop screen dozens of times. How had I missed it? This is entrapment. Jessica stood up, her lawyer instincts kicking in. Actually, it's contract law, Marcus replied. Your specialty, I believe? Then you'll appreciate Section 12.1. Any public announcement of board positions without sponsor approval constitutes breach of contract. The room buzzed with whispers. Phones were out everywhere, recording this unprecedented reversal. David Chen cleared his throat. Robert, as board chairman, I have to ask, did you review this contract with legal counsel before signing? Patricia said Jessica had reviewed it. All eyes turned to Jessica, who suddenly looked less like a senior associate and more like a deer in headlights. I skimmed it. It seemed standard. Skimmed. David Chen's tone could have frozen water. A $5 million contract and you skimmed it. Marcus stepped back from the microphone. Mr. Chen, I believe you have some decisions to make about the fund's leadership. We'll await your response. As he walked back toward me, the room erupted. David Chen was calling an emergency board meeting. Patricia was screaming at Jessica. My father stood frozen, staring at the contract like it might disappear if he looked hard enough. And on the backdrop behind them all, the Tech Edu logo seemed to glow a little brighter. Are you still with me? If this story resonates with you, please take a second to like this video. It really helps more people find these stories. And if you're wondering what Marcus is about to reveal, trust me, you won't want to miss this next part. Have you ever had someone stand up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself? That moment when someone you love shows you just how valued you really are? Let me know in the comments. Now here's where everything changed, where the truth finally came out in front of everyone. Patricia's composure shattered completely. She grabbed the microphone from the podium, her voice shrill with desperation. This is manipulation. This man, she pointed at Marcus, has been deceiving us all, hiding who he was. Olivia probably planned this whole thing. Planned what? I asked, finding my voice. Planned to be humiliated at my father's retirement? Planned to be told I'm an embarrassment to the family? You are an embarrassment. Patricia's mask finally slipped entirely. A teacher making $40,000 a year, driving a 10-year-old Honda, shopping at Target. Do you know how it looks when Jessica and I have to explain you at country club events? The room gasped collectively. Someone whispered, "She actually said that out loud." "And you," Patricia turned on Marcus, "pretending to be some nobody when you're—" "When I'm what?" Marcus asked calmly. "A successful man who loves his wife, who's proud that she shapes young minds, who thinks her work matters more than any corporate deal." Jessica grabbed the microphone from her mother. "This doesn't change anything. I have the qualifications, I have the connections." "You have no experience with education," I said, stepping forward. "Name one educational theory, one classroom management technique, one learning disability accommodation." Silence. "That's what I thought." "Experience doesn't matter when you have talent," Jessica snapped. "Some people are born leaders. Others are just teachers." Just teachers. There it was again. My father finally found his voice. "Olivia has always lacked ambition, always settled for less. I tried to push her toward law school, business school, anything with prestige. But she chose this. This. 10 years of dedication reduced to a disappointed this." "You know what?" I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "You're right. I chose this. I chose to wake up every day and make a difference. I chose to be the person kids run to with their problems. I chose meaning over money." "How noble," Patricia sneered. "And how convenient that your husband's money lets you play teacher without worrying about bills." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Around us, 200 people watched this family implode, their phones capturing every word. "My wife," Marcus said quietly, "has never taken a penny from Tekadu. She doesn't even know the full extent of—" He stopped. "Actually, you know what? It's time everyone knew exactly who deserves respect in this room." He walked back to the stage with purpose, and this time, no one tried to stop him. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement." Marcus stood at the podium with a quiet confidence I'd seen him display only in our most private moments, when he talked about changing education, about making a difference. The ballroom fell completely silent. "My name is Marcus Hamilton," he began. "Yes, I took my wife's last name when we married. She doesn't know this, but it was because I wanted to honor the only Hamilton who actually understands what education means." My breath caught. He'd never told me why he'd taken my name. 5 years ago, I watched my wife come home crying because she'd spent her entire paycheck on books for her classroom. That same night, she stayed up until 3 a.m., creating individualized learning plans for each of her students. His voice carried across the room with devastating clarity. "That's when I decided to build something that would support teachers like her." "Every CEO in this room," Marcus continued, his gaze sweeping the crowd, "every lawyer, every successful person here, we all started with a teacher. Someone who saw potential in us. Someone who stayed after school to help us understand. Someone who believed in us when we didn't believe in ourselves." David Chen nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "But we forget them, don't we? We achieve success, and suddenly those teachers become embarrassments. Not impressive enough for our galas, not worthy of our VIP tables." "This is grandstanding," Patricia protested weakly. "No," Marcus replied. "This is truth. Olivia has touched more lives in 1 year of teaching than most of us will in entire careers. Her students write to her years later. Parents credit her with changing their children's trajectories. But tonight, she wasn't good enough for the family table." He pulled out his phone, projecting something onto the screen behind him. It was a photo, my classroom, walls covered with student artwork, achievement certificates, and thank you letters. "This is what real success looks like. This is what actually matters." His voice grew stronger. "And if Robert Hamilton can't see that, if he values networking over knowledge, prestige over purpose, then he doesn't deserve what Tekadu offers." "You can't withdraw funding over personal issues," Jessica called out, her lawyer instincts kicking in. Marcus smiled slightly. "I'm not withdrawing anything over personal issues. I'm withdrawing it over values misalignment." Section 3.2 of the contract. The sponsor reserves the right to redirect funds if the recipient organization fails to demonstrate commitment to classroom educator support. Redirect? David Chen asked sharply. Redirect where? Marcus looked directly at me, and for the first time that night, his professional mask slipped, revealing pure love and pride. To someone who actually deserves it. I should properly introduce myself, Marcus said, his voice carrying absolute authority now. I'm Marcus Hamilton, founder and CEO of TechEdu Corporation. The ballroom erupted, gasps, exclamations, chairs scraping as people stood for a better view. The photographer's camera clicked rapidly, capturing the moment my father's empire crumbled. That's impossible, Patricia stammered, gripping the table edge. You're nobody. You drive a Honda Civic. You shop at Costco. I do, Marcus agreed. Because I'd rather put money into classrooms than into status symbols. Revolutionary concept, I know. My father had collapsed into his chair, his face ash gray. You've been lying to us for 7 years. I never lied. You never asked. You assumed a quiet man who supported his teacher wife must be unsuccessful. Your prejudice blinded you. Jessica's phone rang. She answered reflexively, her face draining of color as she listened. I understand. Yes, sir. She hung up, looking stunned. That was managing partner Richardson. Foster and Associates wants to discuss the firm's reputation risk. What? Patricia shrieked. The live stream of tonight has already hit 50,000 views, someone called out. It's trending. David Chen stepped forward. Mr. Hamilton, Marcus, as board chairman, I need to know your intentions regarding the fund. Marcus never broke eye contact with my father. TechEdu Corporation is withdrawing all funding from the Hamilton Education Fund, effective immediately. You can't, my father roared, finally finding his voice. We have a contract, which you violated the moment you announced Jessica's appointment without sponsor approval. Your own lawyer should have caught that. He glanced at Jessica. Oh, wait. The irony was devastating. Jessica's incompetence had given Marcus the perfect exit clause. Furthermore, Marcus continued, I'm establishing a new fund, the Olivia Hamilton Excellence in Teaching Foundation. $5 million, managed by actual educators for actual educators. The teachers at Table 12 started applauding. Then Table 11 joined. Soon, half the room was clapping. All the educators who'd been relegated to the back, all the ordinary people who actually understood what mattered. David, Marcus addressed the board chairman, I'd like you to consider chairing the new foundation. We need someone with your integrity. David Chen looked between Marcus and my father, his decision clear. I'd be honored. This is theft, Patricia screamed. We'll sue. Please do, Marcus said calmly. I'm sure the publicity will be wonderful for everyone involved. Principal's wife calls teachers embarrassments, has such a nice ring to it. My father stood slowly, his dignity in tatters, his legacy destroyed in minutes. Olivia, you've ruined everything. But I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was looking at my husband, the man who'd just revealed himself as my fiercest protector, my quietest champion. Effective immediately, Marcus announced, his voice carrying the finality of a judge's gavel. TechEdu Corporation withdraws all funding from the Hamilton Education Fund. The words echoed through the ballroom like thunder. $5 million, gone in a single sentence. You can't do this! My father lurched toward the stage. That money was promised. The announcements were made. The programs were planned. Plans change, Marcus said, echoing my father's earlier words back to him. Isn't that what you told Olivia about her board position? David Chen was already on his phone, likely calling an emergency board meeting. Other board members huddled together, their whispers urgent and panicked. This is vindictive, Jessica accused, her voice shaking. You're punishing a fund that helps children because of a family dispute. No, Marcus corrected. I'm redirecting resources to people who actually understand education. The contract explicitly states that TechEdu funds must support classroom educators. Giving control to someone who's never taught violates our core mission. She was going to learn, Patricia protested desperately. From whom? From the teacher you just called an embarrassment? Marcus's tone remained professionally cold. From the daughter Mr. Hamilton couldn't acknowledge in his speech? The live stream comments were scrolling rapidly on someone's phone screen nearby. Justice! Finally, someone stands up to nepotism. That teacher deserves better. Mr. Hamilton, David Chen spoke up, his decision made. Given this development, the board needs to reconvene immediately. Jessica's appointment is obviously void without funding. This is a conspiracy, Patricia spat. You all planned this. We planned nothing, I said, finding my voice. You created the situation with your choices. Every insult, every slight, every moment you made me feel worthless. You built this outcome yourselves. My father's shoulders sagged. In 60 seconds, he'd gone from celebrated principal to the man who lost $5 million through arrogance and nepotism. The teaching community deserves better, Marcus continued. They deserve leaders who understand their struggles, who value their contributions, who see them as professionals, not embarrassments. Please, my father said quietly, the fight draining from him. The fund helps hundreds of teachers. And it still will, Marcus replied. Just not under your name, not under leadership that sees teachers as less than. The Olivia Hamilton Foundation will serve the same community with actual respect. A reporter pushed forward. Mr. Hamilton, are you saying this was personal? Marcus considered the question. I'm saying that values matter. If you can't respect teachers, you shouldn't control teacher funding. It's that simple. The security guards who'd almost escorted us out earlier now stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. The power dynamic had shifted so completely, they looked to Marcus for direction. We're done here, Marcus said simply. Marcus returned to the microphone one final time, his presence commanding absolute attention. Before we leave, I want to announce the establishment of the Olivia Hamilton Excellence in Teaching Foundation. His voice carried pride that made my eyes burn with tears. $5 million, dedicated to supporting classroom educators who do the real work of shaping our future. The teachers at table 12 rose to their feet, applauding. Mrs. Chen was crying openly. This foundation will provide grants for classroom supplies, fund continuing education, and offer mental health support for teachers facing burnout. Marcus looked directly at me. It will be chaired by someone who understands what teachers actually need, because she is one. You want me to? I couldn't finish the sentence. If you'll accept, Marcus said softly. Though I should mention, I never told you about Tekadu because I wanted you to love me for me, not for this. I know, I whispered, remembering all the times he'd supported me without fanfare, without recognition, without need for credit. This is outrageous. Patricia's voice cracked with desperation. You can't just create a competing foundation. It's not competing, Marcus corrected. Your fund no longer exists without funding. This is a replacement. David Chen stepped forward. For what it's worth, the board members who actually care about education would be honored to serve under Mrs. Hamilton's leadership. 30 teachers in the room stood up, a wave of movement from the back tables, then support staff, then several parents I recognized. Soon, nearly half the room was standing, all the people who understood what really mattered in education. Additionally, Marcus announced, Tech Edu will match any donation made to the foundation tonight, dollar for dollar. Immediately, phones came out. The head of the local teachers' union called out, 10,000 from our emergency fund. 20,000 from the Parent-Teacher Association, someone else shouted. Within minutes, pledges totaling $300,000 filled the air. With matching, we'd raised over $500,000 in addition to the base funding. Jessica stood frozen, watching her carefully planned future crumble. The board position, the prestige, the networking opportunities, all evaporating because she'd skimmed a contract. This won't stand, she said weakly. There are legal implications. You're right, Marcus agreed. Your firm will probably want to discuss how their senior associate missed crucial contract terms that cost a client $5 million. That does have legal implications. Her phone rang again. She looked at the screen and didn't answer. Mrs. Hamilton, David Chen addressed me formally. Would you accept the position of founding chair? I looked at my father, who sat defeated at his VIP table, his grand retirement transformed into public humiliation, then at Marcus, who'd protected me while respecting my independence. I accept. Jessica's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Each call she declined made the next one come faster. Finally, she had to answer. Yes, Mr. Richardson. Her voice was barely audible, but in the hushed ballroom, we could all hear. I understand. Yes, sir. The live stream. I know. Tomorrow morning. Yes, sir. She hung up, her hands trembling. The senior associate who'd strutted in designer heels now looked like a law student who'd failed the bar. They want to discuss damage control, she said numbly. The firm's biggest education client saw the stream. They're reconsidering their representation. What did you expect? Mrs. Chen asked, not unkindly. You publicly insulted an entire profession. Teachers are parents too. They're voters, they're clients. The reality was sinking in. Jessica hadn't just insulted me. She'd insulted every teacher watching, every parent who valued education, every person who remembered a teacher who'd changed their life. Patricia grabbed her daughter's arm. We'll fix this. We'll issue a statement. We'll say you were misquoted. It's live-streamed, Mom, Jessica said flatly. 50,000 views and climbing. The legal blogs are already picking it up. Lawyer who skimmed multi-million-dollar contract calls teachers worthless. Her phone buzzed with the text. She read it and actually laughed. A broken, disbelieving sound. The State Bar wants to discuss my public conduct. Apparently, demeaning educators violates professional ethics standards. Marcus spoke quietly. Actions have professional consequences. You chose to build your career on stepping on others. Now others are stepping back. This is your fault. Patricia turned on me viciously. If you just accepted your place, her place, Marcus interrupted. Her place is wherever she chooses to stand. And tonight, she's standing as the head of a foundation that will actually help teachers, not just use them for photo opportunities. David Chen cleared his throat. Robert, the board needs your resignation letter by Monday. Given tonight's events, your continued involvement would be problematic. My father didn't respond. He sat staring at the tablecloth, aging years in minutes. For what it's worth, I said quietly, I never wanted this. I just wanted to be included, to be valued, to have my father proud of what I do. I was proud, he said hoarsely. I wanted more for you. More than shaping the future? More than being loved by 28 kids who think I hung the moon? More than making a real difference? I shook my head. That's not more, Dad. That's just different. And different isn't better. Jessica's phone rang again, another client pulling out, another consequence landing. The empire built on dismissing teachers was crumbling, one phone call at a time. By the time we left the ballroom, the video had gone viral. 2 million views in 3 hours. The hashtag #HatchTeachers_deserve_respect was trending nationally. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Messages from former students, fellow teachers, parents who'd heard what happened. The story had struck a nerve. Every teacher who'd been told they were just a teacher, every educator who'd been asked, but what's your real job? The internet never forgets, Marcus said as we sat in our car, watching the numbers climb on social media. The fallout was swift and merciless. Screenshots of Patricia calling teachers embarrassments became memes. Jessica's, "Some people are meant for greatness, others for teaching," was printed on protest signs outside Foster and Associates by morning. My father's reputation, built over 30 years, destroyed in one night. The principal who didn't value teachers, the educator who saw education as embarrassing. The irony was devastating. 3 days later, the school board released a statement. In light of recent events, Robert Hamilton has voluntarily accelerated his retirement, effective immediately. Voluntarily. We all knew what that meant. Patricia and Jessica moved to Connecticut within the month. Jessica's partnership track at Foster and Associates had been indefinitely postponed. She took a position at a small firm specializing in real estate law. No more education clients, no more prestigious cases. Her LinkedIn profile no longer mentioned Harvard Law in the first line. But the positive responses overwhelmed everything else. Teachers from across the country sharing their stories. Parents thanking me for standing up. Students, so many students, saying their teachers deserved better. The Olivia Hamilton Foundation received over 50 corporate sponsorship offers in the first week. Companies wanted to be associated with respecting teachers, not dismissing them. We had to hire staff just to process the applications. You know what the ironic part is? I told Marcus as we reviewed foundation applications. Dad spent 30 years in education, but he'll be remembered for disrespecting educators. He made his choice, Marcus said simply. Every time he introduced Jessica instead of you. Every time he valued prestige over purpose. Choices have consequences. A month later, we held our first foundation board meeting. David Chen, 5 veteran teachers, 2 parent advocates, and me. No lawyers unless they'd taught. No business executives unless they'd volunteered in classrooms. Just people who understood that teaching wasn't less than, it was everything. The meeting was at table 12 of the same ballroom. We'd specifically requested it. From the back tables to the boardroom, Mrs. Chen said with a smile. That's quite a journey. No, I corrected. From the classroom to the boardroom. That's the journey that matters. 6 weeks after the gala, my father called. I'd been expecting it. Patricia had left him 2 weeks prior, moving to Connecticut to be near Jessica. The house was too big for one person, he said. The silence was deafening. Olivia, we need to talk. We're talking now. In person. Please. His voice sounded older, fragile. I need to apologize. Do you? Or do you need forgiveness to salvage your reputation? A long pause. You've become harsh. No, Dad. I've become clear. There's a difference. What I did was wrong, he said finally. I see that now. What exactly was wrong? Be specific. Another pause. I could picture him struggling, still unable to fully admit his failures. I shouldn't have given Jessica your position. And? I shouldn't have excluded you from the VIP table. And? Olivia, please. You've made your point. You've destroyed everything. My reputation, my retirement, my marriage. I destroyed nothing, I interrupted. You did that yourself. Every choice you made led to that moment. I just stopped protecting you from consequences. You're my daughter. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything to me. But what did it mean to you? Was I your daughter when you forgot my birthday twice? When you missed my teaching award ceremony for Patricia's book club? That's not fair. When you introduced Jessica as the daughter you're proud of? When you called my career an embarrassment? Was I your daughter then? Silence stretched between us, years of hurt condensed into seconds. What do you want from me? He asked finally. Nothing. That's the point. I don't need anything from you anymore. So that's it? You're cutting me off? I'm setting boundaries. If you want a relationship, here are my terms. 6 months of family therapy, a public apology to the teaching community, and a genuine effort to understand why what you did was wrong, not just the consequences, but the actual harm. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to therapy like some. Then we're done. Your choice, Dad, just like it's always been your choice. You've changed, he said bitterly. Marcus has turned you against me. No, Dad. Marcus showed me I deserved respect. You showed me you wouldn't give it. That's not the same thing. I hung up gently. No anger, no satisfaction, just peace. He didn't call back, didn't meet my terms, made his choice again. And for the first time in my life, I was okay with that. His approval was no longer my measure of worth. 6 months later, the Olivia Hamilton Foundation had awarded 127 scholarships to teachers pursuing advanced degrees. We'd provided emergency grants to 89 classrooms facing supply shortages. We'd funded mental health support for over 200 educators experiencing burnout. But I still taught third grade at PS 48. "Why don't you quit?" a reporter asked during an interview. "You're running a multi-million-dollar foundation." "Because I'm a teacher," I replied simply. "The foundation exists to support teachers. How can I do that if I stop being one?" Marcus and I had moved nothing about our daily life. We still lived in our modest two-bedroom apartment. He still drove his Honda Civic. I still shopped sales for classroom supplies, though now the foundation reimbursed me, and every other teacher who submitted receipts. The real change was internal. I walked taller, spoke clearer, set boundaries without apology. "Mrs. Hamilton!" Tommy, my former student with dyslexia, now in 5th grade, ran up to me in the hallway. "I got into the advanced reading group." "That's amazing, Tommy." "My mom says it's because you taught me that different isn't less than, just different. Different isn't less than." My father's words, reversed and redeemed. Marcus and I were stronger than ever. The secret he'd kept, it hadn't been about deception, but protection. He'd wanted me to be valued for myself, not his money. He'd wanted my father to see my worth without knowing about tech edu. "Any regrets?" I asked him one evening as we reviewed foundation applications together. "Only one," he said. "I wish I'd stood up for you sooner." "You stood up when it mattered most." We'd been trying for a baby for 2 years. The stress of family drama hadn't helped. But now, with peace in our lives, with boundaries firmly set, something shifted. The test showed 2 lines. "A teacher's baby," Marcus said, his hand on my still flat stomach. "They're going to change the world." "Every baby changes the world," I corrected. "Teachers just help them realize it." My father hadn't met my terms. No therapy, no apology, no effort to understand. Patricia sent occasional nasty emails that went straight to spam. Jessica had reinvented herself as a work-life balance coach on Instagram, never mentioning her legal career. But I had 28 eight-year-olds who thought I was magic. A husband who saw my true worth. A foundation helping thousands of teachers. And now, a baby on the way. Different wasn't less than. It was everything. Looking back now, I realize the most important lesson from that night wasn't about revenge or justice. It was about recognition, not from others, but from ourselves. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Read that again. Your worth exists regardless of who acknowledges it. I spent 35 years seeking my father's approval, measuring my success through his eyes. But teaching isn't less than law. Caring isn't less than competing. Service isn't less than status. These are different paths, not different values. The hardest boundary I ever set wasn't with my father, it was with myself. The boundary against self-doubt, against internalized criticism, against believing that choosing purpose over prestige made me less than. Marcus didn't save me that night. He revealed what was already true, that my work mattered, that my choice had value, that the 28 kids who learned to read in my classroom were just as important as any corporate merger. The foundation has grown beyond anything we imagined. But you know what makes me proudest? Last week, one of my former students became a teacher. She said, "Mrs. Hamilton, you showed me that teaching is a superpower." It is. Every teacher reading this, watching this, living this, you have superpowers. You shape minds, you build futures, you catch children when they fall and teach them to fly. That's not ordinary. That's extraordinary. My father and I haven't spoken in 8 months. Maybe we never will. But I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about the people who see your worth when you're doubting it yourself. It's about the husband who builds an empire to honor your work. It's about the students who write thank you letters 10 years later. For those of you facing similar situations, whether it's family, friends, or colleagues who diminish your choices, remember this. Their inability to see your value doesn't diminish it. Their need to rank worth by salary doesn't define it. Their discomfort with your joy doesn't destroy it. Set your boundaries with love, but hold them with steel. You deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. You deserve to be valued, not compared. You deserve respect for the path you've chosen, especially when that path serves others. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe conspires to give you a Marcus, someone who sees you, values you, and when necessary, reveals the truth about your worth to the world. But even if it doesn't, even if you're standing alone at table 12 while others sit at the VIP table, remember that your worth isn't determined by your seat assignment. It never was. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it touched you in any way, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I share stories like this every week. Gerakaushe. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between family approval and self-respect? What would you have done in my situation? And teachers, what's the most dismissive thing someone said about your profession? Let's celebrate each other in the comments. Remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not who others want you to be. Until next time, stay strong and keep setting those boundaries.